Exploring the great outdoors in Pennsylvania and beyond. Brought to you by the Mariana Outdoorsman Association and by Wild Acres Farm, Fishery, and Regulated Hunting Grounds. Now, the great outdoors with Jason White.
Hello, friends. I'm Jason White. Welcome to the Great Outdoors. Today, my co-host is MOA board member Pat Lasco. Thank you, Pat, for joining me today. Greatly appreciate it.
No problem. Good to be here. Good morning, everyone.
We're going to dive right into it. I want to thank our sponsors, Mariana Outdoorsman Association. Currently, you can join the MOA today at marianaoutdoors.com, or you can check us out on YouTube. You can check us out on Facebook at Mariana Outdoorsman Association. You can also go on Twitter. You can go on Spotify. You can go on to Anchor Radio. All the radio shows get uploaded as podcasts, so please check us out. And if we have your email, please make sure to check your email, because we're sending out emails weekly with the different shows and information, educational material, and always doing our best to just try to communicate with everyone as best we can. Wild Acres Farm, Fishery, and Regulated Hunting Grounds, managed by 10 Mile Creek Outfitters. If you're looking for a weekend getaway, lodging, if you're looking for an upland bird hunt, trophy trout fishing, guided whitetail deer hunts, and also, last but not least, spring gobbler turkey hunts. Everything's free ranging. You can give us a call at 724-579-0924. Again, if you're looking to do any of those things in your free time, looking to bag a big buck, wild gobbler in the spring, trophy trout fishing on a weekend, upland bird hunt, 724-579-0924, or you can also go to 10mileco.org. That stands for 10 Mile Creek Outfitters.org, 10 mile, TENMILECO.org. Last but not least, I want to thank Washington County Tourism Promotion Agency. Visit Washington County. I'm going to dive right into some upcoming events for the Mariana Outdoorsman Association. This Friday, it'll be at 3 p.m. It's the February trout stalking. We meet at 3 o'clock at 1997 Maury Road, Clarksville, Pennsylvania, 15322. That is the 10-mile access at the Wild Acres Farm. Please come if you want to participate. Happy to see you. Saturday, February 24th at 9 o'clock, we're going to have a continental pheasant hunt. Still have a few spots available. If you'd like to check that out, it's a really cool event. It's a fundraiser for the association. You can call us at 724-579-0924. Happy to have you. Like I said, got a few spots available for that continental pheasant hunt. This Saturday, February 3rd, 10 a.m., we have an open house and a tour. So if you'd like to check out the MOA, what we have to offer, gun ranges, whether you want to see the 750-yard rifle range, the multiple pistol ranges, 5-stand, please check us out. That'll be this Saturday, 10 a.m., 1997 Morty Road, Clarksville, Pennsylvania, 15322. First Friday of March, April, May, and June, we will continue having trout stalkings. Same times, same locations. So just mark the first Friday of each month as kind of our standard stalking schedule. Saturday, March 9th, we are doing a collaborative gun and cash bash with the Cokeburg Volunteer Fire Department and also the Ellsworth Volunteer Fire Department. And that will be taking place at the Cokeburg Volunteer Fire Department. So if you'd like additional information about this, you can check out the Mariana Outdoorsman Association's Facebook page or go to our website at marianaoutdoors.com. Next, we have the Long Range Hunter Rifle class. This is really cool. We actually have a group out of Ohio. It's a gunsmith shop and some former military personnel that are going to be teaching this class. Really excited about it. It will be Saturday, April 20th and Sunday, April 21st. Information for this event is also on the marianaoutdoors.com, and you can check us out on Facebook at Mariana Outdoorsman Association. Next up, the PA Trout Classic. That is Friday, May 3rd and Saturday, May 4th. It's a 2-day trout tournament. It's $125 per person. It'll be a tag trout competition, so the trout will be pre-measured and weighed, etc. So we're already going to know what they are. It's super easy, super simple. You just clip the tags off the fish, turn them in, and we'll see who the winners are for that particular event. It's going to be fun. Like I said, 2 days. All the rules for the MOA will apply. Sections will be artificial only. Some sections you're allowed to do bait, but it's a fun thing to get people out, and we're going to have people across not only Pennsylvania, but different states are going to be coming in for that, so I'm really excited. But we got a lot of cool stuff Pat and I are going to be diving into today, but one of the things that Pat does, Pat, tell the listeners a little bit about what you do and in regards to butchering of deer, because I want to dive into this with some tags and red tags and just a lot of stuff that you and I always are talking about. But yeah, tell them a little bit about where the butcher is and what you do.
We have Bobex Deer Processing in Monongahela. We've been processing for about 15 years. It's been in business. I've been there about 10. I just kind of started as skinning in the room, just kind of helping out, whatever, and it's progressed up to, being almost a head cutter pretty much at the shop. We're a small group, but, we work with everybody we can. We deal with some red tag stuff. And Jason and I have talked quite a bit about it over time, and I think that's kind of where a lot of this is progressed to. He's done a really good job getting it out there, the word out, and it still needs some work and ironing out, but I think if you get the farmers with the butchers, I think you could really do what they need to do to save a lot of the crops that are taken by the deer, but it doesn't just stop at deer. That goes into crop damage from raccoons and other things. Raccoons are very detrimental to corn. You can tell they climb up the stalk and they break it. A deer just kind of eats it off the stalk. So I think that's where we're going to head, a little bit of the trapping information, but some of the trapping things.
Well, one of the things you just mentioned about the red tags, I said this on the show last week. One of the things that got brought to the table was red tags. For those that don't know, it's a program basically during the summer months for farmers for crop damage. And the issue that a lot of people have is there's butchers out there that are willing to receive the meat and to process it, such as Pat. But what happens is the Game Commission's process is kind of screwed up as of today. Say a farmer shoots a deer and it's 95 degrees out. Basically, they're supposed to gut the deer and then get it into a cooler somehow and wait for the Game Commission to come and get the deer and then take it to the butcher. So what Pat's talking about is basically there's been a lot of discussions as of late to cut the Game Commission out of the process and allow the farmer to work directly with the butcher, and it would make life so much easier.
The red tag program goes also beyond just the farmer being able to shoot the deer with his red tags in the off season, but hunters can also go out and use those red tags. It used to be the farmer had the red tags and the hunter would come out, find out the access program through the farmer, and then go hunt. And then if he shot one with the red tag, he would then tag it with the red tag and then do whatever he did, whether he processed it himself or knew of a processor that worked all year round. Some processors close their cooler down at the end of the season. So it does make it tough because if you don't have the deer coming in, you don't have your cooler running, but you don't want to have to start up your cooler for just one deer. Because if a hunter's doing it, it's one or two deer hanging in your cooler. It's kind of tough to basically offset your electricity for that deer. You're not going to make much when you're running a big cooler like that, and it has to hang. One of the best things for a deer is to hang. It breaks down the enzymes in the meat. It lets all the blood drain out. It's really good for it. Some deer don't set up, though. Some deer don't have the fat cover that needs to really draw everything out. A deer that has good fat cover sets up so much better, cuts better. Summertime deer are different. They're going to have thinner hides and stuff, but the program does need to be kind of set forward to where the farmer can work with the hunter And even just I've talked to farmers that have had their red tag hunters run off their farm. Just the game commission is always bugging them or something about that. The game warden's coming out and checking them on things, and you go out and you need to abide by the law. But I think some of the little nitpicking things that they get you on, sometimes it's not worth you going out and doing it, and you're not going to help the farmer out at that point because they aren't even coming back for hunting season.
Well, the other thing that we've been talking about too, not only to allow farmers or hunters to bring the meat directly to the butcher, but also there's been a lot of discussions about the carcasses. So, like hypothetically, let's say there's an area where somebody doesn't have access to a butcher, or there's not a way that somebody can get it cooled quickly enough, or whatever the reasons may be. You're well aware, Pat, and as am I, that for people that butcher their own meat at their farms or wherever you hunt, we, at Wild Acres and at the MOA, we take a lot of the carcasses and we incorporate them into our manure piles. Well, the red tag program as of today does not allow you to do that. So this is another thing that's been brought to the table and is an open discussion that is an opportunity. I don't think that everybody would do it all the time, but I can tell you, obviously, Pat, that we do that now in regards to the carcasses, like any carcasses that we do utilize. I mean, we even do this with pheasants because you're not
left over.
You're not being wasteful. The bodies break down and they get incorporated into the manure, which goes into the obviously goes back into the fields for fertilizing the fields. So these are just like little things to make life easier on everybody, and actually you're cutting the government out, which is a huge benefit.
Oh, it's a huge savings on the cost of fertilizer nowadays.
I also wanted to talk about the process of a deer coming to a butcher and what that looks like from start to finish, and also the Game Commission's involvement with that.
Pretty much, you show up, call ahead, make sure we have a hook, especially during rifle season, archery and stuff like that. We usually have enough hooks, but you come into the shop, we have paperwork. You fill out your name, phone number, you put your tag number down, and then you kind of fill out what kind of cut you want. Whether you want just a basic cut where you're going to get your chops, steaks, roasts, ground meat, stuff like that. And then there's always the custom specialty smoked meats that we do, jerkies, salamis, bolognas, with cheese, without cheese, hot sticks. You kind of pick out what you want. You kind of have to make sure you have a big enough deer to get all you want if you want something other than a basic cut. But so once it gets onto our table and we have all your recorded information for your tag, we put it onto the skinning table. We skin it down, get it divided in half, give it a rinse, take our torch and kind of burn any kind of hair off that might be on there, make sure we can get it as clean as possible. And then it goes into the cooler. It goes and hangs in the cooler. Typically, we'll let them hang if we have the time to a couple days or more. And then rifle season, we have to get on as quick as possible. I know most of the butcher shops this year within our area had to put signs up, had to turn people away. Most of the time with us, we were able to just tell them to bring it the next morning. But it got tough. I mean, we were cutting the very next day. The first deer in, we're getting cut probably within 36 hours. And then it's just a nonstop hustle to make sure you have a hook open during rifle season. Rifle season is tough, especially with limited cooler space, which most processors have in this area. And a lot have shut down in this area and or aren't taking or able to take deer like they used to. Most of the cutters and some of the bigger names in the area, they're getting up there in age and can't do it, have less help. I mean, just finding help, just finding somebody that can skin deer for you during the busy time so you can be off doing other things within the shop. It's pretty big.
So I recently had a meeting with the Farm Bureau, and there were some biologists from the Game Commission, and there was just some discussions that I thought were extremely intriguing to me. So there were some complaints about the need of butchers in the state and the decline of butchers in the state. And we started going down a rabbit hole of asking questions. I have butchered at the farm, but your shop does our butchering for the most part. But the point was, we started asking questions along the lines of, well, what is the process from the Game Commission? Like, what are they seeing as the needs of the butchers? And something that got brought up was that, well, they have this tremendous relationship about collecting data with deer heads. And I was kind of intrigued by that. And I asked a question. I was like, well, if the butchers are having financial issues, like, what are we doing in regards to, I guess we'll call it renting space. So like at your particular butcher shop, the Game Commission then asks you to hold on to all these heads, etc. And I asked the question, well, what are you giving the butchers? And the answer that I got, I honestly could not believe, but they proceeded to tell me that their compensation was not money, but it was a hat and a calendar. And I was fascinated by that because, like, clearly you're not going to go buy bread and milk with a hat and a calendar. But then it expanded into, okay, well, what about data collection in regards to tags? And they said, well, we collect that data you and I talked about this earlier, but the data that they collect is just the heads that they're collecting at that particular time. It's not every head that comes through.
They come during rifle season. They come the first week of rifle season and then the second week of rifle season, usually Tuesday or Wednesday. I can't recall them coming a third week at the end of the season. But yeah, we take mainly the doe heads that, they're just going into the trash anyways. So we take the doe heads, we put them into a barrel for them. Any bucks that are getting Euro mounted, they'll be able to cut the jawline back a little bit because it's not going to affect the cape if they have to do that. And then if they have a cape deer, they won't even touch it. They just let it go because it's going to be to the taxidermy and they don't want to mess it up for the hunter, which I fully respect that. That's a trophy of a lifetime most of the time, or a kid's first deer. Who knows what it is, just a memorable deer sometimes. We have some nice deer in the state now. They've told us basically for the last several years that it's a 2.5-year-old buck during rifle season. Most of the big bucks were killed during archery from what they said, which I'm not sure how they're getting that data if they're not coming to the shops during archery season. It must just be people calling in their deer. That would be the only thing that I could understand from that, is how they would know during the early season they're getting that many deer, because they don't come to us during that other than the 2 weeks of rifle season when you hit the major influx of deer.
Well, that being said, we're they're renting space for your services and for your, I guess we'll call it storage, with a hat and a calendar, which personally I completely disagree with.
I never really thought much of it. I mean, we were just they asked us to do it and figure, you know what, if we can help with some data and they can learn something. But after 10 years of being around it, I'm not sure what else they're really learning.
Well, I think that in any business, if somebody rents space or asks you to do something, there's a financial passing of money. So the fact that they can't give $1 or $2 per head, to me, is, first of all, kind of insane. Secondly, why we aren't collecting or presenting the opportunity to collect all tags at the shops and incentivize the shops to do so is another thing, because they're collecting this data, but it is not accounting for a person's reporting. Also, they're not allowing... So hear me out. Whenever somebody goes and buys a hunting license, if they buy it from a store, that store is getting financial compensation for selling that license. I think it's $1.
I believe they get $1.
It's $1 or $2. Think of this on the back end as the same premise. So Pat's shop is doing this work for the Game Commission to get their biology people the deer heads. So there should be $1 or $2 incorporated there because of storage, because of the work, because of, all of that. Then, as Pat said, he's collecting these cards with information. There's two ways to go about it. You could either add a few line items to it and basically either turn in the tag or.
Well, the tag has to stay with the head, and I actually had that conversation with them this year because when they came in, first thing they did was cut the tag off. I said, all right, they have to scan it. Most hunters don't know that there's two little pinch marks that you can pop out, and then the tag can be a little more legible so you can read it without taking off. But then all he did was either throw it onto the table or stuff it in the air. And I said, well, doesn't that have to stay with the head? He goes, yeah, but we're done with it. I said, but yeah, if the game warden shows up and says, what's all these heads without tags or the tags missing out of this? I said, what's he going to say to us? I'm going to say the biologist came here and clipped all the tags off, and that's not going to be anything for them. I mean, they aren't going to really accept that in my eyes, from what I have to deal with them. And then we got deeper into the conversation of how it has to be tagged and this, that, and the other, because by PA law, it has to stay with the head. So it has to be attached to the ear. If you wedge out the antlers, now you're walking around with a set of antlers that you don't have a tag for.
So just so everybody understands, as of today, you're required to report a kill.
Yes.
And that is either by phone, there's a little mail-in card you can mail in, or you can go online. What I am saying, to financially incentivize the butchers and to give them an extra dollar or two, they could be gathering that info and do it for you when you turn your deer in, and it kills two birds with one stone. Your deer's reported, so clearly you don't forget, or it happens. I understand. Like, I know tons of people that I've talked to that say they just forgot. This would get the Game Commission better data, as opposed to them only getting some tags. They're now every tag that would come through. So think about it. Butcher shops are hurting financially because of obviously the costs that they bear. It's seasonal, so it's, this isn't like in all capacities where it's 365. But, you get you said how many deer went through? Approximately 250.
It's a nice bonus. I mean, whatever it would be a nice bonus no matter what it is. Whether you do 200 deer, 500 deer, 1,000 deer, whatever. I mean, that's going to be, there's bigger shops up there around the area that do a lot of deer. I mean, so yeah, it would be a huge financial thing, little boost to them. I mean, just your electricity, your dumpster.
I'm sure the butcher shops would rather get $2 a deer or $2 to $4 a deer as opposed to a hat and a calendar. And that's ultimately, when you're looking at this from the big scheme of things, ways to incentivize businesses to be financially benefit for you to exist. That's what's important. This also gives the Game Commission better data. It also makes it easier on the hunters, because the hunters will be like, yeah, I'll just report it right now. I know with Farm Bureau, we also were hoping to get like a QR code on the tags that you could basically scan, and it would automatically report. Just another way to get better data again. We talked about this stuff about the butchers being able to do that, and we were just told that it could present problems. And we asked, well, what were the problems? And really never got a straight answer. We were just told that they would get back to us at a later time. So, whether you're talking about farmers being able to take a red tag deer directly to a butcher, or a farmer being able to manure and dispose of a carcass in that capacity, just like they do in the normal seasons, or these financial opportunities, we'll call it, to get better data collection and also stop the rental space for hats and calendars. I think these are all good things that people are kind of seeing that need to change and need to be discussed, because I'm sorry, you're putting in the work, you're putting in the effort, they're getting a return from you as a business. I don't see any reason they can't.
I will say that they don't visit every butcher shop in the area. They only hit four major ones probably, or some of the bigger ones that will participate with them. I'm guessing there's 2 or 3, 4 in the area that they don't hit. So they're only getting a certain select area of that information that they're getting documented into their own database.
So it's not all.
It's not like they're going to every processor in the area. They aren't leaving us and going 10 miles down the road to this guy or 20 miles over to this guy. They're probably hitting the major guys. I'm going to say Kips, I think they hit, because he does a lot of deer. But they aren't going to every one. So it's, select 4 or 5 in the area, and then going from there. I'm not sure if it has to do with the Hunter Sharing the Harvest program, if you have to be partake in that to where it helps them. I'm not sure exactly why they choose the shops that they do. Again, they were coming when I started just in the skinning room, so I'm not sure how that all came about.
Do you know, because I don't know this answer, do you know the Hunter Sharing the Harvest, how that's funded? That
is a donation program. They have a board. But we actually have one of the board members come to our shop. He came in, and we've talked to him several times about that, and it's a great program. There's a few little quirks in it, I guess, but it's a great program.
The meat goes to
meat goes to local food banks. You do have to be under the ag inspection. So you have to have water. They come in, check everything, make sure you have the freezers and everything running properly. And then we have a representative in our area. Then Allegheny has one. I think each county has it. So that goes by county, but their tags in the state of Pennsylvania go by WMUs, Wildlife Management Units. Which I don't agree with, and a lot of people I've talked to don't agree with the management units anymore. I'd like to see it go back to county by county. I think you get better data per area or county at that point.
Well, there's
2A, 2B, there's so many deer in 2A after season, it's unbelievable. And 2B is still open. But if that deer crosses the highway, you can't hunt it. But if it crosses up that way, you can hunt it.
Well, there's a lot more. There's certainly a lot more counties than there are management units, and some management units, I've talked about this in the past. Some basically can be 6 counties in size. Some can be upwards of 9. So yeah, when you're doing data collection, it becomes very confusing. It's not very. In my opinion, it's not appealing in the way that they're laid out. I understand that these biologists, in their wisdom, decided that this is the way it should be. I completely and utterly disagree. Data collection, as Pat said, county by county, is much more pinpoint. It's much more thorough. In the same topics, Pat, like, for example, the Game Commission does not believe that farms are habitat. They don't see a planted cornfield, soybean fields, hay fields. They do not view those as habitat. And the reason I bring this up, or how I know this, is I had a meeting with with the Game Commission, again with the Farm Bureau, and we brought up about why is the Game Commission not investing more money to plant and to develop and expand habitat on game lands. And that's become a huge issue because they do not view plantings as habitat, which is counterintuitive because I know you know a lot about the doves and what they do even in that capacity.
They started down in Washington here the last few years planting more dove field and burning and doing this, that, and the other. But essentially, from what I've heard, I haven't been down there, hunted down there for a while. But essentially, they plant it. It grows up to whatever it is. Jaggers go into it, but they didn't even know that you can buy, glyphosate-ready seed and plant it, spray it, and it'll keep growing. So the people that are trying to start doing some stuff like that don't even really know how the seed actually needs to be planted, how the fields need to be sprayed, whether or not they need fertilized. I doubt they even do a soil sample at this point. I would like to think that they're going to do that kind of stuff, but it's a big learning curve, and if they don't have the right guys doing it, I know they're pulling the farmers' permits, part of their land that they're farming down there again, just so that they can expand their dove fields or this, that, and the other. But they planted their dove field right next to the waterfowl swamp last year, and then they closed the waterfowl swamp off. because you manipulated the ground right next to the waterfowl swamp. So essentially they're considering that baiting. And that goes to the fact that you can hunt over standing fields on game lands, but you can't do it on your own private property because they consider that baiting.
Well, I think the baiting piece of the puzzle is a huge conversation, because no matter how you shake a stick at it, if you manipulate the ground at all, I don't care if you're planting, like to my point, hayfield, cornfield, soybeans, I could go right on down the line, food plots, you're altering Mother Nature. No matter how you shake a stick at it. I can go out there and plant, an apple orchard for the intention of I'm going to hunt in that particular area. In Pennsylvania, you're not allowed, to your point, to plant fields. I can put in alfalfa and clover plots and hunt over that, but I'm not allowed to hunt over standing corn. It's just a very counterintuitive theory or view or vantage point of how they see it. I don't really understand, because when you compare apples to apples, as far as what like, it's basically picking and choosing what you can and cannot use. The deer, I mean, holy heck, you go into these housing communities and look what the deer do to the plants. People go through, and deer love hosta. You go through people that have hostas, it just obliterates them down to nothing, because it's like basically like a lettuce to a deer. Deer don't look at housing developments, farms, I don't care what it is, game lands. They care about what tastes good, nutrition, what's going to be sustainable for them. That's what they value. They're not looking at it as, oh, that's game lands, or, oh, that's a cornfield, or, oh, this is a housing development. Deer are going to do whatever to survive, to thrive, and that's just the order of the circle of life. And for whatever reason, I feel like the biologists within the Game Commission certainly are missing that understanding that deer don't see property boundaries. Deer don't see... They see food. They see
food. That's it.
That's what they see. And it's a huge problem, because, we've talked a lot about in the past, on past shows, I've discussed how you have all these game lands. They're not adequately planted. There's a lot of opportunities to expand them and to do so much more. And what's happening? Well, these deer are bedding on the game lands, sleeping there. They're going to all the neighboring farms that are planted with corn and soybeans and all these other things, and that's where they're eating. And that's become its own problem, because you have some of these game lands that are massive in size, which is great for the hunters. But the problem is, let's say you have 1,000 acres that's in a big chunk. Well, do the math of 1,000 acres around all those other farms now.
Then look at the farms that are attached to them.
Those attached farms that go around the perimeter are then now the food source for the deer, and then they go back to sleep. And it's just, if we could do more on the game lands to plant and to hold the deer and to nourish the deer, it would go a long, long, long way. But it's just not something that people have really, I would say, within the Game Commission, it's not been a huge talking point. But I want to shift gears real quick, because I just saw some numbers, and you and I have talked a lot about this. But people always ask about small game. They're always asking about, well, I feel like there's not as many rabbits anymore. I feel like there's not as many squirrels anymore. The pheasants are gone, blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of reasons. And I know in past shows we've talked about different reasons, from, a lot of farms just growing up, habitats changed a lot. We used to have a lot more grain fields, etc. But there's two factors, in my opinion, that are blatantly there. It's like an elephant in the room that do not get nearly discussed. And one is ground predators, and the other is aerial predators. Back in the day, everybody used to shoot hawks. Whether they said it publicly or it was privately, they basically got wiped out. And yes, there were probably a lot less trees in southwestern Pennsylvania, because the farms were much bigger, so you had a lot more open space. Now, with all these farms growing up, etc., you have a lot more trees. These aerial predators can perch, and it's not like you can go and shoot them. We at the farm have a permit now to be able to, defend our pens and things like that from them. But that took almost a year for that to
a long
happen.
process.
It was a very long process, lots of bureaucracy, etc. I wanted to read these to you because I didn't know if I sent these to you. This is from February of 2023. So this is a year old, but I want everybody to appreciate this. So this has nothing to do with hawks. This has to do with trapping of pelts. These are a year old, so mind you, this isn't going to be 2024's prices, but I'm sure 2024 will be in the same ballpark. Raccoon, average, $2.84. Now, this is out of Pennsylvania. Green raccoon, average, $2. Muskrat, average, $3.75. Mink, male mink, average, $4.96. Female mink, $2.71. Red fox, $5.33. Gray fox, $13.50. Coyote, $16.60 is the average. Beaver, $15.10. Green beaver, $9. Skunk, $13. Possum, $1.80. And a fisher, approximately $27. I bring that up because you and I have talked about this a ton. These prices, I'm actually in future episodes, I'm going to get the prices for the historical prices.
It's not far off. Historical prices, coons were $25, $30. Some guys were getting that on the whole, just taking the carcass into the fur buyer, and they were paying that for it.
So what he's saying for everybody out there, it used to be $30. It's now less than $3. So
the time and money and effort you have into it, it's
the amount of trappers in Pennsylvania is much less. And also, even the people that do purchase a trapping license, and Pat can attest to this, it takes time. It's not like
it's a lot of time.
It's a lot of time. There's a lot of costs associated with the traps. So, first of all, you have to invest the money into buying your license. Because you don't just buy a hunting license, you have to buy then a fur taker's tag, and then
I did see on something with the Pennsylvania Fur Bearers Association, whoever it was, they're trying to get a few things passed, and the one thing they did put on this year was they want to lower the price of a non-resident. A non-resident trapper to come in here to the state is $81. You know how much fur you have to trap if you're going to take a week and do a non-trapping or a trapping seminar on a non-resident thing?
Well,
you're not drawing anybody in to do that. There's no
at least,
incentive.
by the sounds of it, at least 30 raccoons.
Yeah. That's just to pay for it. That's not paying for your gas. You have to check every 36 hours. A trap average for a coon is going to be $10 to $15. Coyote traps probably $15 to $20, and beaver trap are upwards of $30.
And these are. So you got to buy, just so everybody understands, you got to buy your hunting license. Then you have to buy your fur takers. Then, depending on specifically species, some are even more money. So like a bobcat tag is additional. Is it a fisher is additional money?
They just reintroduced the pine marten, another predator. You're going to have to buy a tag for that when they allow it.
So you start tacking this up just from a trapping perspective. Before you even go and buy gear, you could be over $80 to $100. Then you're going to have probably a couple $100 wrapped up in your gear for it. Then, to Pat's point, now you're going to get into your time and your dime with your gasoline. Now you have to, every 36 hours, the traps have to be checked by law. So now you get into going and checking them. And actually, we were out today, and you check some, and we're going to go back and set some more and check them again. But that's very time consuming. So when you start looking at these prices,
let's stop there. Now you got the fur. Now you got to go home. Now you got to skin it out. Then you got to flesh it out. Then you got to stretch it. And then you have to have somewhere that's warm and has circulating air to dry it for $2.80.
So this is why, through the Farm Bureau, I've been advocating to the fact, and I'm hoping I can get this passed as policy, but South Dakota has a program that I really like, and it is a nesting predation program. And that program basically gives you $10 per hide, which, as of today, raccoons $2, $2 to $2.84, muskrats $3.75, fox $5.33. Skunk would not apply to my conversation. Possum, $1.80. But just right there, those four, you're talking anywhere from $1.80 to $3.
But there again, skunk is a nest robber, so that goes along with the rest of it.
So it's these are basically what I envision is anything above would be an offset to kind of mimic that. But I'm going to have to follow up by, this has been a great conversation. Time's really flown today. But hey, as I close out, I just want to remind everybody to join the Mariana Outdoorsman Association. You can do that at marianaoutdoors.com. Pat, thank you so much for joining me today. This was a great conversation.
Yeah, we'll be back.
There's a world of information, and we got much more to share. But, hey, marianaoutdoors.com, 724-579-0924. This is Jason White. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next week.